Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to the Hello Warrior podcast. My name is Dennis.
My name's Kristen.
And we have our very first co-op student.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Welk. It's nice to meet you guys.
So for this series, we're going to do installments or segments of co-op students. So one from every single faculty. So we'll start off with science, and then we'll venture off into arts, engineering, math, environment, health, and all the great faculties that we have, and kind of see what co-op students are doing at Waterloo and how the experience sort of varies between the programs and maybe what year you're in as well. So Caitlin, thanks for being here on our being our special guest. How about you start off with like a little intro, so a little bit about yourself.
Of course. So I'm Caitlin. I'm in my third year of biotechnology and chartered professional accountancy, and I'm also on the varsity figure skating team. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's sweet. I heard you got a medal.
I did. I finally got a medal. There was like a fourth place curse that was going around with me, but I broke it and I got third.
Oh, which skate was it? Like
it was for fours free skate.
Okay.
So it's just like four of us jumping and spinning at the same time, essentially.
Oh, that's sweet.
But, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I couldn't figure skate. I couldn't try. I'm a board gripper.
Yeah, you are. I witnessed it.
Yeah, no, you can grip the boards all you want. You can't be good at everything, Dennis.
No. We'll stick to the things we're good at. Alrighty. So, Caitlin, how about we start off with kind of getting to know a little bit more about your career ambitions, sort of post-grad.
Yeah, of course. So, because my program is kind of like a double degree in the sense that I take both science and business courses, definitely like the path of my program is definitely heavy on like the accounting and finance side. So my program directly, like if you maintain a certain average, I can go do the Masters of Accounting here, which is my plan unless I do decide I enjoy my tax courses a lot, then maybe I will do MTax instead. But yeah, after that, I just definitely want to get my CPA, and then depending on like what job opportunities I get, I might explore the idea of tax law and go to law school for that. So it's pretty much my plan for right now. It's definitely not super science heavy, but it's more in like the business path.
There you go.
Do you mind if, just for anyone tuning in who isn't quite familiar with that program, like what's the biotechnology piece?
So the biotechnology piece is literally just taking bio and chem courses. Like I pretty much take like the classics like cell bio and genetics, and I definitely don't take some of the more like niche science courses that like people in Bachelor of Science would take, but it's definitely like it's nice to kind of take a break from always doing AFM courses and kind of switch between the two. So I think that's why I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
You think you could do my taxes?
I mean, my mom still does mine, but I feel like theoretically I could do my own if I wanted to. Took a course on it, but...
That's pretty cool. And then what is your co-op placement or your current co-op placement?
So right now I'm at one of the big four accounting firms in the world. It's called KPMG. I've been there both winter co-ops so far, so I'm currently there right now on my second co-op, and I'm currently doing audit there, so kind of just making sure that companies' financial statements are in order and nothing is a little bit suspicious with them, I guess. But yeah, I really like it there because it's such a big firm, they're able to hire like approximately like 10 co-op students. Oh, wow. So we're all just like super close, and it's kind of nice to just go in and have them there, and you know, if you're confused, it's like nice to just ask around. So I really like it there, and I probably honestly will return in the fall if I get a return offer, but yeah.
That's awesome. Would you, in light of like talking about having other co-op students there, what would you say is kind of the best part of your co-op experience so far?
I think the best part is just like being able to learn more, because like obviously I find that people always go into work kind of afraid, not knowing what they're, I guess, have to do all the time, but I find that you're never going to really know what you need to do until you get there, so you just always are learning stuff, and I think that's the greatest thing about co-op, is just the experience you get, because I feel like you can't necessarily get that directly from just classes and like learning things in school. It's just kind of the work experience.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. Like I always tell students, it's not just about the education and what we're kind of providing at Waterloo, but it's also the networking and the connection building opportunities that you'll get, whether that is through co-op, through labs, research, workshops, field courses, or just anything that we do kind of with the hands-on learning aspect at Waterloo.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity to figure out like what you like, but then what you don't like.
Yeah.
You know, if you take a position somewhere and you're like, But, I mean, it's good to hear someone likes to do taxes, because...
Yeah. I feel like no one loves doing taxes, but it's definitely, like, there's enjoyable aspects to it, I guess. You know, when you finish it, you're like, oh, I'm getting money back. So.
Yeah.
True.
There you go. Got some good returns. So then what's the best part of your co-op, would you say?
Honestly, I think it's the flexibility right now because, like, obviously I am skating, so it's very nice that it's close and I'm able to kind of sometimes go to afternoon practices if I really need to, if competitions are coming up. Like, I think our managers are super flexible in the sense that if I'm busy, I could just say, oh, like, I'm going to be away for a couple hours. As long as I just, work a couple hours later, they don't even care. They're not extremely strict, and I think I really like that, I guess, like, work-life balance that they allow me to have. So it's pretty nice.
I think that's a really cool point about like the work-life balance, and thinking of that, I think when students think about co-op, they get a little overwhelmed, and understandably so. It sounds like a lot, working, and then you're studying and you're applying for jobs. What tips would you have for, say, new co-op students or students looking to go into a co-op program?
I guess almost just to, it sounds weird to say like set boundaries for yourself, but I think if you kind of overwhelm yourself with the amount of work that you have and you're constantly stressing yourself out and like getting into the habit of just constantly working like an insane amount of hours per week, that's just what you're going to feel like is the new norm for you. So I think to really just set that, like, obviously, yes, like outline the work you need to get done for the week, but if you're on track, like, and it's 5:36, like, just stop, take a break, go hang out with your friends and your roommates, go have a nice dinner, like, just kind of like, I guess, stop yourself from thinking about work for a bit and then, wake up and continue the next day, I guess, is my advice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that advice. That's great. Well, thanks, Caitlin, for being on the the episode, talking about the Faculty of Science and your co-op experience. And then on to the next faculty.
On to the next. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and we got our next student now. We got a student from the Faculty of Arts. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm Sebastian Plant. I'm in my third year of Honors Arts co-op. My major is Social Development Studies, and I have a minor in Psychology.
Awesome. And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Toronto originally, but then for university, post-secondary, come here.
Awesome. And one of the questions I always ask students is, why did you even come to Waterloo? Why did you really consider our university?
Yeah, I mean, the co-op, like, I think that's kind of like a large kind of like entice for Waterloo. In high school, like, you're just so young, you're like, what do I do with my life? Yeah. And I think co-op is like a good opportunity to kind of explore things like you think you like, the things you don't think you like, and kind of figure all that out.
Exactly. Kristen, remind me if I'm wrong, but #1 in Canada for the best co-op program and one of the largest in North America?
We absolutely are. You're exactly correct. Yeah. And I think that's a good point, is like you get to figure out what you like and what you don't like. Yep. For anyone who's unfamiliar with what, say, SDS or Social Development Studies is, do you mind just giving us like a little quick clip of what that program's like?
Yes. So I always describe it kind of like a combination of psychology, sociology, and social work.
Very cool.
For me, I'm kind of going more in that social work field. So that's the goal.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but so for your future then, you want to work with like in the social field or something along those lines?
Yeah, so definitely after this, I still want to do my bachelor's of social work and then potentially master's. The exact field of social work, I am thinking like maybe like youth mental health, but like still up in the air.
Yeah.
Gotta explore things with co-op.
Exactly.
And that's awesome. Speaking of co-op, do you mind talking about your current or even some past co-ops that you've had at Waterloo and what you've done and what companies you've been a part of and maybe some of your tasks and kind of how co-op looks at Waterloo?
Yes. So my current one, I'm on my second co-op term, I'm working at the Games Institute. So it's actually on campus. I think it's like 1 out of 8 like university research centers. So that's super cool. My kind of job is I'm working with like the researchers and the members of the GI. That's what we call it. Cool. So I'm kind of there helping with like member management and facility management, but then also another part of the job is like event management also. So it's kind of like a cool combination of kind of like office job things,
right?
But then also like fun stuff with events.
Yeah. Would you say from that co-op, like the unique thing with arts I find is that you get a lot of like human-centered or power skills? Like what ones have you say gained from co-op or these different jobs?
Yeah, definitely like interpersonal skills, like definitely like talking to people. I think with my first co-op, I definitely learned that. Right. I worked at the advancement office at UW too.
Wow.
So with that, like the people I worked with, I loved working with, but it was a smaller group of people.
Right.
So with this job at the Games Institute, there's just like a bunch of people, like the members are all grad students or like professors.
Right.
So it's super cool just people being in their cubicles and like just so much people being around.
Yeah.
Like I love just talking to people. So this is like a great match for like what I do and what I like to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And we have so many different co-op opportunities at Waterloo. I think a lot of students don't realize that, and they're like, oh, okay, I got to find a job in another institution or another company, and a lot of them do that. But we have a bunch of co-op experiences or opportunities that we have at Waterloo and within all across like all 6 of our faculties. So that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I was going to say, do you mind just talking quickly just about like the job process? Because I too find students are pretty nervous about finding, applying, getting jobs and so on.
Yeah. So definitely like, of course, you know, make sure to make those cover letters. The cover letters they're always I think that's like the most tasking part
Right.
of it is making the cover letters because you want to personalize it to stand out at least. But definitely like, apply to jobs you don't even think you're qualified for, or maybe even a little enjoy, to be honest. Because like I think like co-op is meant for that, is exploring what you like and what you don't like. So definitely apply to as many jobs as you can. Like I remember last term when I was applying for this co-op, I had like 14 interviews 1 week.
Wow.
So it definitely was like mentally tasking.
Yeah.
But it paid off because I enjoy my co-op.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool like insider scoop is like cover letters, that stuff that students don't think of. So I appreciate that insider knowledge.
Yeah. And if you could speak maybe just like a sentence or two, like a brief general overview, what is Waterloo Works?
Yeah.
Because that's really what our foundation for co-op really is.
Yep. So Waterloo Works is a website with like all the university's connections that us students in co-op have access to. It can be jobs from like other countries, like we said, like other companies, or even at UW.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And if you had to give any tips or any sort of helpful advice for maybe high school students that are thinking about, okay, I want to go into a co-op program, how can I best prepare now? How can I stand out when I actually do have to apply for a co-op? What are some tips and tricks that you maybe give to a high schooler or maybe like an incoming first year student?
Gotcha. Definitely like practice your talking skills, like interviewing skills. I think that's like a great way to stand out, because like if a lot of times co-op is like the first time people are applying to jobs, like sometimes people just don't work before. So learning those skills once you get an interview is so important, because of course like a resume, like it's a snapshot of what you've done so far, but that kind of doesn't show the potential of what you have. So I think you being able to like advertise yourself in a sense during that interview is a great way to kind of stand out, even if you don't have like those skills already.
Yeah. One of the things that people always tell me is like, if you ever want to enhance your speaking skills or even just be better at interviews, talk to yourself in the mirror. I hate it. I hate it. Like it's the worst, but it definitely does help. Or even just recording yourself. I don't want to listen to myself afterwards. I'm not going to listen to this video after it's uploaded to YouTube. But no, I'm joking. But no, those are definitely some of the best ways to enhance all those skills and even make you more prepared for interviews.
Yeah. I love that insider tip. Thank you, Sebastian. I think that's great.
So thanks, Sebastian. Thanks for being here and kind of representing the Faculty of Arts and kind of speaking to your own personal co-op experiences. Next up, we're going to have an environment student. So stay tuned for that. Welcome back. Oh, why do we do that? Because it's not welcome back.
It's not welcome back, Dennis. Start again.
And we're back with another student here. Now we're finally at the Faculty of Environment, and we have our special guest, Reika. Reika, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, my name is Reika Samoji. I'm a third-year planning student within the Faculty of Environment. Aside from planning, I'm also taking a minor in urban finance and economics. I'm on the varsity figure skating team, and a fun fact about me is that I love F1, and I've been watching for quite a few years now.
Oh, and your favorite team?
McLaren.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to get any flake for this, but mine's definitely Red Bull.
That doesn't surprise me.
What are yours?
I would be a Ferrari girl, for sure.
No. Did you watch the race this weekend?
I did, yeah. It was pretty exciting.
Did you see George's crash at the end?
Yeah.
That was wild. 20 seconds is insane of a penalty to give him, though. That's what I felt. Like, they're saying, like, Alonso's, like, brake checking him or, like, whatever the case, but 20 seconds is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
He just whines too much.
Yeah, that's true.
But still.
But you said you're on the figure skating team?
Yep.
Yeah, we actually interviewed Caitlin with the Faculty of Science, so it's cool that you guys are both on the same team. How did OUAs go?
It was good. It was good, successful. I met my goal of getting a point this season, so I was pretty happy about it.
Congrats.
It's actually a similar points ranking system to F1. So,
is it?
Wow.
yeah. top 6
10?
get points,
Okay.
and then the rest no points. But
So is it 10 skaters then? So 10 people?
usually
like,
around
per
10
event?
teams.
Okay,
Yeah, we have 10
gotcha.
teams in Ontario, and
And top 6 get points, and then
Mhm.
anybody outside just gets 0.
yep, 0.
Perfect. Gotcha. No DNFs though, huh?
No DNFs.
No DNFs. But yeah, I guess we'll get right into it. So we learned a little bit about some co-op that we have at Waterloo from the arts perspective and even from the Faculty of Science. But now I'm interested to kind of hear what co-op is like with the Faculty of Environment. And I don't know if this is your first co-op or whatnot, but feel free to kind of just talk about your current co-op position and any co-ops that you had in the past, and kind of what your day-to-day looks like, what you do, and maybe why you even applied to them.
Yeah, so this is my second co-op. It's 4 months with the City of Waterloo as a student planner. So I'm working actually over at City Hall in Uptown. It's quite close by, which is what I really like about the position. And it's something that I looked for when I was in the application process. In terms of responsibilities, I work with two teams within the planning division. So it's the community planning team, which works more so with the policy side of things. So that's our official plan, as well as the development planning team, which more so works with the zoning bylaw and more of the actual on-ground work that we see happening in Waterloo. For community planning, I do a lot of research in terms of seeing what other local municipalities are doing from a policy perspective and report back to my supervisors and senior planners. Whereas with development planning, I get in, whether it's building permits or larger development applications and proposals coming in, I review it using the zoning bylaw, and something that we actually learn how to do in the planning program in first and second year. So I've used those skills and applied them to my co-op position. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I've been working in the public sector for both my co-ops now. Like I said, my first co-op was also in the public sector, worked with the City of Brampton, Brampton Transit, so that was a transportation planning job. A little bit different from this one, which was land development, but also still very interesting. And I think that's one thing I really enjoyed about co-op, especially in planning where everything's so interdisciplinary and there's so many different areas. Using co-op as a tool to kind of discover your passions, where you want to work and what you want to do within the community is really important to me. So I'm very grateful for the program.
Yeah, that's huge. And before I kind of cut you off here, just taking a quick step back, if you could describe your program or planning to maybe somebody who isn't sure about what it is, or maybe someone who wants to go into planning, what's kind of this quick shot, like snapshot or summary of the planning program?
Yeah, so planning is kind of the generic term. There's urban and rural planning. So urban is more what we see in the city landscape. So let's think of Waterloo as a city, the more downtown planning, what kind of housing you're putting in, whether it's single detached or something like apartment buildings, where you're putting this housing, where are we putting parks, how are we planning parks, and who are we planning the city for? That's pretty much what it is. There's also a couple of disciplines, like I said, within planning. So there's transportation, which is the public transportation, usually what we see. So bus transit systems, the ION here at Waterloo, and also major transit systems like Go Transit as well, something that we can take part in. There's also land development and policy planning, which is more of the technical side of things, reviewing exactly what's going to go up in the city. But there's quite a few areas of planning of that too, including data analysis and GIS, which is more of the computer science side of things, where you do map analysis.
Gotcha. Sweet.
That's actually really cool that there is like a GIS component to it, because I think when people think planning, sometimes they think of just like models built out. So that's a really cool aspect to it.
Yeah, we've definitely shifted a little bit away from the physical modeling, and we're using more of 3D analysis, or like I said, that mapping, so GIS software. And we've taken several courses within the planning in my first 3 years using the software. So it's awesome.
That's awesome. And then what tips would you give maybe to some high schoolers or to some incoming students of how to kind of get prepared for co-op, and what are some things that they can do now just to stand out when they get here if they are going into a co-op program?
Yeah, one thing that I definitely always think about when applying for co-ops or giving younger students advice is to be sociable. One thing that I struggled with when I came out of high school is learning how to talk to people outside of a professional perspective, because in those interviews, yes, they're looking at your resumes and what skills you offered, but they're also looking at what kind of person you are and how you present yourself in that interview. That interview is basically an opportunity for you to kind of show who you are, what you value, and what kind of culture you provide when you're in a workspace. So that's really important. So beyond just your resume, be sociable, don't be shy, step out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
No, those are huge. I know for me in my first year, I did a lot of school, like didn't really spend a lot of time doing extracurriculars or hanging out with people or making those connections. But I would say like from second year onwards, I started being more sociable, and I started doing more intramurals and joining different clubs and athletics and just extracurriculars. And just from those experiences, it really allowed me to it opened up a whole bunch more doors for me and more opportunities like down the path.
Yeah, and I think we forget that it really is a skill, like being interviewed. those are skill sets, like you said, and I think it's cool that co-op, you get to practice those before you're applying to jobs, like careers, like after you graduate. And I think if I'm right, I could be wrong, planning is one of the programs where your co-op hours can count or work towards like your designation to be a certified planner. Is that right?
Yeah, some co-ops, they definitely have to be registered with the governing body, but most co-ops do allow that, like mine currently does. So I've been looking into that process and what it means and what it means in the future. So that's really important to me and something I definitely looked for when I was applying as well.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
And then after you graduate, do you want to become like a planner, or what's your kind of career goals?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. And that's the one thing that I'm very grateful co-op helps me apply or like figure out, because planning is so multidisciplinary, like I said, and I came into the program not really knowing much about planning, and that's totally normal. So you kind of use the academic side of things to discover everything, but then you use co-op to experiment and apply what you've learned in the classroom into the workspace. So through my co-ops, I've done transportation, now I'm doing land development, and I've realized that I love both of them and I want to combine them, and kind of that's the field I want to work in. It's called active transportation. So that's more of the walking, cycling, connections between place to place. So that's definitely where I see myself working in the future. In terms of a workplace, I want to stay in the public sector, so it's usually the government. I love connecting with people and seeing how my contributions in the workspace help the physical environment. So even now when I'm working on certain projects at work, I go around the city and I'm like, oh, I know where that is, and I worked on that. So it's really neat to see how my work is kind of giving an impact to the city itself.
That's super cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Co-op's a great way for you to see things that you don't like and the things that you like. So it really helps narrow down some things that you want to do after graduation, which is great. And Kristen, I think we'll have one more question for Reka. So what's the worst and best thing about your co-op?
The best thing about my co-op, to narrow it down just to one, but I think working within a team of such like intelligent people has been so helpful. Like senior planners or even people of younger age who've recently graduated have such different experiences, and bringing that together in one workplace environment has been really helpful, especially for a co-op student who wants to dig into everything. And working, like I said earlier, for two teams within one co-op is really important, because I'm not only getting the physical side of things, but also the policy side. So rather than having to do a co-op in each separately, I've now combined it into one.
That's awesome. And the worst?
The worst part? Sometimes you have to do some overtime work.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing I look for in an employer is like how that overtime work is compensated. So whether that's monetary compensation or I get to take time off later, that's something really important, and I communicate in the beginning. But otherwise, I wouldn't say there's nothing too bad about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I know our employers are super flexible with students and overtime hours, like that kind of stuff. So it's really great. Yeah. Well,
thank you.
Thanks, Reka, for being here and being like our environment student, talking about the co-op program that we have at Waterloo. So thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me be here.
And we're back with another episode. I feel like we should redo it.
No, it's super smooth. We're going to keep it. We'll keep it.
Perfect. Awesome. So we're back with another episode on this Hello Warrior podcast, or I guess segment, not really a new episode, but we have a new student with us, and now we're finally on to the Faculty of Engineering. So we've talked about arts, environment, we've talked about science, and now we're finally at engineering. So if you could just introduce yourself, and thank you for also being on our podcast.
Absolutely. So my name is Lakshay. I'm a 4B Systems Design Engineering student. I have a minor in cognitive science, and we've done 6 co-op terms in our engineering program. I'm sure we'll get into that.
Right.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Systems Design Engineering. Do you mind sort of talking a little bit about your program and what it entails for maybe some prospective students?
Yeah, so that's like the trademark question for Systems Design Engineers. So basically, it's an interdisciplinary program. The analogy that I give whenever I talk to people, just to sort of break it down, is imagine a puzzle, and each part of the puzzle being like a different type of engineering. We've got like a software component, mechanical, electrical, sometimes marketing, sales, and Systems Design Engineers are taught how to make sure that each piece of the puzzle works well within itself, but then when you put it together, it fits and, creates that solution that you're looking for a particular problem space.
Gotcha. I like that. And you know what? One of the most common questions I get on the road is, do we have like a, what's that word? It's like a, not aviation. It's aerospace engineering. Yeah, exactly.
That's a big one.
So, do you think Systems Design Engineering is a suitable program for students who might want to go into aerospace, or kind of how could those two fields like connect if they do in any capacity?
Absolutely. So I think that systems is like a really great representation of what an engineering program is, because I feel like it teaches you how to think critically. And then for me, like, that was a great start. But then I realized that I needed to find something that I was passionate about to like apply my engineering skills to. And so for me, that was cognitive science. And if that's aerospace for someone, I'm sure that the university has like courses that you can take, maybe a minor or an option, or like specializations that you can take within your program or your faculty. And so that's something that you can definitely look into. I'm not particularly sure of specific examples, but yeah.
Gotcha. And then do you mind finally talking a little bit about your co-op experiences and maybe your latest one or any of the more significant co-ops that you've had?
Absolutely. So 6 co-op terms, the way that Waterloo Engineering works, you get 24 months of total experience. And so the first 3 that I had were at Scotiabank. I started my first one at Scotia, and then in March of 2020, that's when like COVID-19 sort of began, and then the pandemic began. And so the market was very like volatile. We weren't really sure what was going to happen. And so at the end of the term, they offered a return offer. And so I kind of went back, and then they had this great program where you don't really have to, like the skill set that you require to try a different field is a lot less. Like the barrier of entry is way less than like, let's say if you're trying to find a software engineering role externally versus if you're just trying to transfer from like a data analytics role. So, I asked them that I wanted to try something new, and they said that sounds great. And so that's why I went back for my 3rd term. And then after that, I wanted to try something new and just make sure that I sort of, wasn't a one-trick pony. And I went to a manufacturing consulting firm in Burlington. They're called Pinpoint. A lot of great experience there. There was a lot of client-facing experience and sort of like figuring out how you can always have like a solution for the client, but it's about how you present it to them so that they really like don't really have any choice but to take, the advice that you're giving them and apply it to them. You want to make it as simple as possible for their decision-making process. So that was something really cool that I was able to learn and apply. 5th co-op term was at a startup. It was a pre-Series A, like seed-funded startup. There were about 30 people, and it was called it's called Atolio. And they create sort of a product where within house you're able to consolidate all the documents and data that you have. So imagine like if all your Teams messages and your emails and like your Jira documents and like all of the information that you have across the company is like available in one search engine. And so that's like the product that they're able to create and produce. And I worked as a technical recruiter for a couple months, and then I worked in software sales for a couple months, and that was a really cool experience. And then my last co-op was at CAE. They make flight simulators out of Montreal.
Oh, there you go.
And they and that was a software development role. So I was working on the sort of software that is used to test the pilots for different maneuvers.
Right.
So that software, making it as like customizable as possible, but then when you format it, making sure that it like works and is being like you can send it to FAA and Transport Canada, and it looks good for them as well. So that was a really cool experience. Very diverse experience. I feel like there's 2 ways that people go with co-op, and it's like breadth and depth, and I definitely went the breadth route.
That's awesome. Are those like the full motion flight simulators that pilots would do for training?
Yeah, exactly. Like the really big boxes, and like I got to go and tour one of them, and there are like these really huge hydraulics, and like you got to go inside, and it's like the whole cockpit, like exactly how a plane would be. So
that's great. Did you ever get to like fly it or test it out a little bit?
Unfortunately, not. No, there's a little bit of red tape that we would have had to overcome by now.
I think that's cool because like you mentioned, you went for breadth. Which is really unique or a really cool thing about systems design and even just engineering co-ops in general. Like I think students get attached to the idea that I'm in computer engineering, I'm going to do strictly computer whatever, where I think there is more breadth available for engineering students 100%. And crossover. Like you were doing software work while not being in software engineering only, right? And I think 100%. That's really cool and like a really important piece for students to remind themselves you're not as pigeonholed as I think you might think.
Exactly. Like I think that like the engineering critical mindset is what you're here to learn.
Exactly.
Right? That's what you should get out of your 5 years of Waterloo engineering. Like it shouldn't necessarily be like the wiring of a circuit or like the thermodynamics of like a particular problem. Like it's just the idea of how you're supposed to think, break down a problem, and then build it back up. Right. And then you can, if you understand that, you can apply it to any industry that you work in.
No,
Very
that's awesome.
cool.
I love that because you can learn all those principles and skills from all universities, but it's really the critical thinking and the problem solving skills at our university that really makes us stand out.
Awesome.
Would you say in your undergrad then that you had smaller class sizes? Like, did you work more with groups, or was it more individual, larger lecture style classes?
I'd say that like systems is special in the sense that like even if you compare to like mechatronics or ECE or something, like their class cohorts are particularly larger. I'd say double the size or so.
Sure.
We have about 95 kids in our class. I know that some of the larger classes in systems have like 110, 115.
Okay.
So it's still a very small classroom, very like almost high schooly in the sense. Like honestly, it took me back to elementary school to a certain point because like, you know how in elementary school, like you sit in a classroom and the teachers come in. And like in high school, you still have to sort of go to different classrooms in different parts of the building. Systems is like sometimes we would spend 3 days of our week just sitting in a classroom, and the prof would come to us.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And so it's really great because you sort of just have like this stable, comfortable space, and you're always with the same people. You get to know them, and we had the unique experience of COVID and like online learning, and then also like
Right.
in-person learning. So that's something that we were able to experience, and I think like the university handled it really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Do you have any advice for students thinking about co-op, or if you were to go back in time to yourself, if whether it was about applying to jobs or how you thought about co-op, is there anything you would say to yourself as a student?
Yeah, I'd say that there is the breadth and the depth route, and I'd say like do your very best to like sort of pick one, because if you sort of dabble and try to like have the skill set of one particular field and like doing really well in it, but then also trying to explore different fields, like you're gonna kind of get caught in the middle, and I don't know if that's ideal. And then I think that's something to consider if you are choosing the breadth route. Like I'm very glad that I did that because I'm now able to like cross off a lot of things in my list, which is a really big pro of going the breadth route. But one downside is that when you're like if I'm going for my 6th co-op and I'd like to try a software role, I'm most likely competing with people that have done 6 co-op terms in software or 5 co-op terms in software.
Right.
So they have way more experience on their resume and they like understand the space. And so there is like a huge learning curve. If you are going the breadth route for basically every single time you change like or have like a pivot in your career path. But that said, like co-op is the time to do it. I'm now going into my new grad career knowing like I like this about a role, I like this about a company, I like this about the size of a company and the industry that I'm working in. So I'd say 3 things that you want to like explore from your co-op time is the size of a company that you enjoy, the industry that you enjoy, and then the role that you like enjoy. So those 3 things, if you can explore those, you set yourself up for your new grad career for sure.
I love that. That's an awesome answer. And what kind of ambitions or plans do you have post-grad? If you've even thought about it, yeah.
No, for sure. Like I know that I'm going into the workforce for a bit. I know that I want to do more school, but I'm not sure what I want to do it in. And so I think that going into industry, seeing where like what industry needs, what skill sets are sort of lacking, and like the companies that and what they're looking for, and then what I'm interested in. And so I know that I want to go back to school. I'd like to work for a bit down the road. If you ask me 5 to 10 years, probably like people management. I like talking to people. I like, I just sort of thrive off of that sort of energy. And so I want to sort of set myself up so I can be a good leader. And that's what I'm trying to do over the next like 5 to 7 years.
Cool.
You're very well spoken.
Yeah, you'll do great.
Yeah.
Now, before we let you go, we would be amiss if we didn't give you an opportunity to flash your ring to the camera.
Absolutely. Iron ring.
Iron ring. Yeah, that's awesome.
Congrats. And thanks for being on the podcast again. We really appreciate it. And you talking about your co-op experience and even just your experience with Waterloo Engineering.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
it was
you.
a great time. Hopefully people are able to learn and, reach out to Waterloo engineers at any point. We're very like helpful, and whether you're applying to university or you're in university looking for feedback, it's a really great sort of community that we have. And so leveraging that as much as possible is a really great idea. So thanks for this opportunity. I had a great time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll see you on the upside.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm just teasing.
Oh my gosh, I love
Cutie pie.
There we go.
That's actually pretty good.
That's pretty sweet.
That's one of the better ideas you've had, I will say.
Get out of here.
Yes.
Get out of here. Well, welcome to another segment of the Hello Warrior podcast. And so right now we're interviewing a student from the Faculty of Health. And so we have Anna here, who is also a student ambassador, but I'll have her introduce herself.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Anna. I go by she, her pronouns. I'm in my last term of health science at the University of Waterloo. in the co-op stream.
Very cool.
Awesome. And you're also a student ambassador?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you give tours around campus and stuff?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And then I'm also an undergraduate residence like Dawn.
Wow.
So yeah, and then sometimes you'll catch me at the IT desk trying to fix computers.
Wow.
Busy.
Yes.
Busy.
Okay.
How do you like your program?
I love it. I think one of the reasons why I got into it, wow, this sounds like a plug, but one of the reasons why I got into it was because UWaterloo Health Science provides like a unique perspective on health. So rather than focusing on just traditional aspects of like medicine, looking at like pathology and like disease, a lot of it's also focused on like social determinants of health.
Very
Which
cool.
I really valued.
Yeah, it's awesome getting that like multidisciplinary sort
Yeah.
of format of health and learning about that. And then students who do want to go into medicine or in any of those professional schools, the program of the
Yeah.
or the health sciences program is an amazing one to do. But then there's also all those other options, and maybe we'll even explore some of those options through kind of the co-op experiences that you've
Yeah.
had. So if you don't mind, just talking a little bit about the co-op experiences that you've had throughout your undergrad, or even just talking about some of the ones that stood out to you most.
Yeah, so my first co-op was actually with the IST team here. So I did like a lot of like back-end stuff with like staff, along with like front-end troubleshooting with prospective students and with current students. And then my second one, I worked actually under MUR, so as a campus visits and events associate. So I like worked with like first-year students, also like high school students who are interested in applying to Waterloo, and then the student ambassador team, which is one of the reasons why I stayed on and continued as a student ambassador. And then my most recent one, I did my 8-month in tobacco policy research, so a little more academic. But that was really a really fun time because my previous co-op terms I've never worked with research. And then my last one working with research and looking at tobacco policy at an international level was really, really cool. And then seeing how my work tied into like the policies being developed in Canada was cool.
Very cool. And I think it's cool that you've done, because when we talk about co-op, I think a lot of students think of like a traditional like employer job, but students don't realize that like academia pieces can still be co-op. Like it's not something like you can still be paid to do that. So I think that's you have like a little bit of both worlds, which then when you go on to whatever you might want to do after, you've sampled those.
And that was something that I tell a lot of like prospective students, that you can really use co-op in like two ways, where either to like hone in on your skills or to like try out different things.
There's also a third, figure out things you don't like to do.
Oh,
That's another
exactly.
one. That's another one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where was the tobacco research at? Was that like at Waterloo, or was that a different sort of institute?
Yeah, so it's with the International Tobacco Control Group over at Toby Jenkins, just north of campus.
Wow.
But like the founder of that is I don't know if he's still teaching, but a psychology prof at Waterloo. But he like dedicated his whole life to tobacco research. So I was really inspired.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. And that was an 8-month, you said.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think another cool part is that like for some programs, like say engineering, they tend to be more regimented 4-month intervals, but programs like yours, if you can do 8 months, and especially if you're enjoying it, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then I think another great thing is that there's so much flexibility. Obviously, like I can't speak for like engineering specifically, but with like the other faculties and programs, you can like rearrange your courses in a way where you can work an 8-month if you wanted to with an employer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really cool. Allows you to like build that connection even more. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, because then you're not just stuck in like a 4-month every time. It's not so rigid, so you get to have that flexibility as well. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Going back to your program just a little bit, if you could, and this is totally like off the top of your head, what's the coolest class that you've had thus far in health sciences? Or is there any class you've taken?
There's two.
Could be a lab as well.
Okay. So both courses are kind of bridge courses with kinesiology.
Okay.
But in my third year, I took like, I don't even know the exact course code, but it's like Health 407. It focused on like cardio health. You were in my class.
I was in your class for that.
Very
That was
cool.
awesome.
That was a really cool course, learning specifically about the heart and like diseases, and like learning about like heart ejection factors or things like that. Like that was really cool. And then learning how to read like an EKG, that was really cool.
That was huge.
Yeah, and like the signs of like a heart attack and like what it looks like on an EKG, really cool. But this term, I'm taking a KIN 100 course to meet like my pre-clinical specialization requirement. So I'm taking the anatomy course, KIN 100. That's really cool. It's very knowledge heavy, but it's backed up by the lab, and it's like really cool going into the cadaver lab and then seeing the actual muscles, and like the nerves and the arteries and whatnot. That's really cool.
Yeah. I like that you brought that up, because whenever we're on the road, I always tell those stories to students. Like if you're in kin, first year, you're going in that cadaver lab.
Pretty cool.
And you get to study bones, organs, muscles, tissues, like right there, getting that firsthand experience. And I think once you complete the course, I think you're actually able to maybe even dissect. That's so interesting for people who love that kind of stuff. So
and a pretty unique experience for like first year students, like in kin, and honestly, even in your undergrad in general. Like I think a lot of times, real human body experience tends to be reserved for like medical schools or professional schools. So the fact that you get to do that even in year 1 or 4 or whatever, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then Anna, what do you want to do, let's say after graduation? Do you have an idea, or I'm kind of throwing you on the spot here?
No, that's okay. So my long-term goal has been going to law school. So I want to go to law school, be a lawyer. But I'm a little bit like you as well, where it's like I love the recruitment side of things. So I don't know, we'll see. Maybe continuing like a year or 2 in recruitment, and then seeing how law school pans out. But
exact same boat as me in a way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's just so fun, like working with students, talking to them.
Yeah.
I'm like someone who's like really extrovert, and I love talking. Like if you gave me a mic, I could like just like keep talking.
Just keep going.
Keep going.
We gave you a mic. Just
I can just keep going. This podcast, I could go for like 3 hours.
We'll have to make a whole new episode for that one.
But like I would really enjoy like talking to high school students and just like telling them about Waterloo. Like I've been a diehard Waterloo fan since like 8th grade. So
I've never seen you without any kind of merch on. You're always repping merch.
No,
always.
It's actually like maybe it's a problem because like out of like 7 days of the week and 5 days I'm like in Waterloo gear.
That's phenomenal. We should be paying you.
No,
more.
I'm a walking billboard.
Yeah, that's awesome. And before we would say let you go or anything, even just more generally speaking beyond co-op, what advice do you give to students like looking to come into university, whether it is about co-op, whether it's about studies or anything, like just pulling from your ambassador experience? Is there something that you share with students where you're like, look, it's a time of transition or whatever, but this is my piece of advice?
Yeah, I gotta think on that one for a bit.
Yeah, take your time. We'll put a thought bubble above your head.
We'll just start playing elevator music at the moment. Yeah.
That's so funny. I need to see the cut after this.
Yeah.
I think there's a few, like from like a more like academic level is like figure out your time management skills so that you're like not falling behind on work, the usual. And then with co-op, like have fun with it. I think that like, yes, it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes having like even evaluation at the end of it. But like co-op is really an opportunity for you to grow, figure out what you like and what you don't like, as much as like you're helping like the employer by fulfilling their tasks. I think it's also like it's like bi-directional, where you can actually take a lot out of that, and you can learn I learned a lot about who I am as a person, specifically like what kind of style or like how I like to be acknowledged in the work that I do.
Right.
That was something that I took away from co-op, and that's something that I constantly ask as like an interview question to like employers. Like how do you acknowledge when good work gets done? From like the more student fun side, I think like have fun with university. Like time flies by. You like I come into it thinking that 4 or 5 years is like such a long time. But now that I'm at the end of it, I'm like, wow, that like flew by.
Yeah.
And like some of the things that I remember are like the fun moments I have with my friends.
Absolutely.
So like get out of your bubble, meet new people, have fun, take a few slip days if you need to, depending on the program you're in. Just like have fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
I love that advice. We're going to end it right there on that high note because that was absolutely awesome. But thank you, Anna, for joining us today and being part of the podcast. Maybe we'll have you on a 3-hour podcast in the future.
Yeah,
there we go.
Up and coming.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and welcome back. We finally have our final student here to talk about her co-op experiences. So thank you, Zara, for being here.
Yeah, of course.
Feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Zara. I'm currently undergrad student here at Waterloo. I'm in my 3rd year and I'm studying a joint program. So joint pure math with combinatorics and optimization. It's a very cool duo. And right now I'm on my 3rd co-op term.
Awesome. What kind of is pure math and combinatorics and optimization? If you could explain it to grade 11 or grade 12 student that might be interested, simple terms.
Simple terms. Pure math, I can best describe it as just theoretical math. So how does math work the way it does? And how do we know that everything that we've built upon math is in fact 100% true? How can we trust it, basically?
Gotcha.
And combinatorics and optimization, the way I like to think about it is combinatorics is in how many different ways can I count something and how can I count it as fast as possible? And then once I have that result, how can I optimize that information to like create the most effective system possible?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because whenever I'm at grade 10 careers classes, and they ask me like, oh, Dennis, I don't know what combinatorics and optimization is. And I try to tell them a story. I always tell this story, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I always think of it as, let's say you use Apple Maps or Google Maps, and you're trying to get from point A to point B, and they calculate how long it's going to take in the best route. That's what I always think combinatorics and optimization is using.
Yeah, it's also, the example I use is like Amazon delivery.
Okay.
So the way that they like format routes isn't actually like straight lines and like, oh, if two houses are like neighbors and they both have a package, they won't necessarily be back to back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is crazy because you would think, oh, two houses that are right beside each other, they're gonna deliver the two packages consecutively. But they actually, like Amazon has like used combinatorics and optimization to like create like these crazy like patterns of like routes and roads, and so sometimes they do some crazy loops, but it actually cuts down the time by like 50%.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's crazy because whenever I see like the delivery person at my neighbors, I'm like, okay, I'm just expecting a package because I ordered something, and they drive right past my house.
Exactly.
Just like, come on, just
now it makes sense.
Get me my Nike shoes. Come on, yeah, exactly. Zara, if you don't mind kind of speaking to some of the co-op experiences that you had with the Faculty of Math and kind of the things that you've done throughout your undergrad or even some co-ops that you're on right now.
Yeah, of course. So as I said, I'm on my third co-op, and so far they've been completely different, which was kind of my goal going into co-op. Like, let me see math applied in like as many different ways as possible. And so my first co-op was with the computer science department here at the university. I worked with women in computer science as their project coordinator. Awesome. And so that was really exciting because I got to see like the back end of like student events and like how we do outreach as a university for departments like computer science. And what I did there was like mostly like revamping like feedback collection. Like, how do we know that students are actually liking what we do and things like that. So that was a really good introduction into kind of the project management field, but centered kind of around events and like literal projects.
That's cool.
And then my second one, I kept going down that route into project management, but in tech, so in software development. So I worked with Dayforce, which is now like Ceridian, which is now Dayforce. I worked with them doing like agile methodologies. So that's like sprints and like them coordinating projects. Like, let's get it done in like consecutive order. Like for software, it's always like implementation and then like a bunch of little pieces of the project like broken up. And so managing like a bunch of software teams and working with engineers, that was really cool because it was like actual like project management and like a large scope, which was really interesting to see math and computer science there. And now this current co-op that I'm in, I'm almost done it, and I'm actually really sad because this has been like such a fun co-op. I came to university with the idea that I would come out and go to teachers college. And so I really wanted to do a teaching co-op. I just didn't know how, or like, because you can't really teach without the teaching degree, that whole thing. But the CEMC, so here with the Faculty of Math, the Center of Education, Mathematics and Computer Science, they do like outreach programs and enrichment programs for elementary students and high school age students. And so this term, I'm teaching an enrichment program called Math Circles with the CEMC. So I get to like pick my lessons and then teach it to them. And it's really cool because it's like, let me think of like, how can I simplify really complex math like theorems that I learned to teach it to then someone who's 11. Right? And these kids are so smart and they love math, like probably triple as much as like we do. Every time love of math, like that's bigger. I like to think about it that way. And so I'm teaching this term as well as working with the Waterloo math contests. So doing some marking for those, which is very exciting.
For like the Euclid or what?
Yeah, the Euclid, the Gauss, the Pascal, all of those. Yeah, feels very full circle. Yeah. Considering that I wrote them in high school and now I'm marking them. Yeah, so that's kind of fun.
I think it's cool that your co-op experiences, like I think when people think math and co-op, the first thing they think of is like, well, I'm going to be in a finance job or I'm going to be in something like that. And so when students ask like, well, what else can I do? I'm not interested in that. I think you have really good examples of like math is everywhere in different types of jobs, like project management. It's not just finance. You can totally do that, but you can do like what you're doing, like so much more.
Exactly. Yeah, I think because I thought that same thing, and I remember my first time on Waterloo Works, which is like the application software. I was looking and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna end up working at a bank, which is like for some people, but for me, I was like, oh no, like nervous. But then like I talked to like my co-op advisor, and they were like, no, don't worry. First of all, you can apply externally. So if you see that the field is too saturated with finance, like within our job board, like LinkedIn, Indeed, all of them like have a ton. And then once I opened to that, I was like, oh, like data science, like project management, like all of these like other things and fields, like what is it called, supply chain.
Right.
And, like never knew about any of those like coming into university.
Yeah.
But now I'm like very aware of like math is like very versatile in terms of like what you end up doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think once you get to university, that's where you get that whole like learning opportunity, that experience where you see, it's not just this is what I can do. It's all these other things, and university kind of opens your eyes to all those different opportunities and experiences as well. And then I'm thinking in the future, I guess. Do you know what you want to do moving forward? Like I know you're passionate about like teachers college and maybe going into some teaching, but what do you want to do maybe?
That's like a good question, one that I hear a lot from my parents.
Yeah.
But I guess like I still have 3 co-ops to go.
Oh, there you go.
Right? And so with those co-ops, I'm thinking like try whatever is remaining. So probably one will be finance at some point. Like I'll look at that, test it out, and then whatever it is, like I think for me, the most important thing is that I am doing at least some of the math that I'm studying. So in like these teaching like jobs, like I find myself actually doing like very much math. Right.
Exactly.
As opposed to like math applied in like some route like data analysis or like computer science, right? But like straight up pure math, like I want like seeing it. I've seen it the most in this most recent teaching co-op, and so that has like enforced what I like already knew about myself, which is nice. But then my other 2 co-ops like brought up like different skills that I was like, oh, I really like at my Ceridian co-op, I really enjoyed like the training and like change management part of things. So like how do they train employees on like a big scale, and how do you develop those lessons? And so I'm just hoping to learn as much as I can and then hopefully make a decision by the end.
And then any advice that you may have for some grade 11 or grade 12 students who are thinking of going into math at Waterloo?
Yeah, I mean, like my greatest piece of advice is like, do it. Like I was so nervous coming into university because I was like, okay, so I'm good at math and I enjoy it, but I know that like it's probably not gonna look the exact same. Like grade 12 calc and vectors, whereas like first year calculus, like the jump there was quite a big jump, but then I was like, no, like what I like is actually math, not just like the formulaic approach of like high school mathematics, but actually like how do I know that this works, right? And so I think my biggest piece of advice is like talk to students that attend the university. That was a big thing that helped me. A lot of my friends, like older siblings, came to Waterloo. And so hearing them talk about like their co-op experience, the social life and how like you bond over like your courses and like how much the profs like love what they're doing. I think that was for me the biggest reason that I came to Waterloo Math was I came on like a tour visit and the tour guide was also in math. I'm pretty sure she was like in actuarial science. And she said, she was like, every professor really truly loves math, like a lot. And every student in the faculty is like passionate about it. And so I'm like, okay, that's good, because if I'm surrounded with people that like enjoy it, I'll never be like, oh my gosh, like I can't, because everyone around me is going, math. So being around those professors and like getting to like learn from them is so exciting. And so like my biggest piece of advice is like talk to existing students to like get hyped up and then like apply to attend.
Love that.
Yeah.
There's always this awkward pause between Dennis and I where we're like, are you gonna the only thing I was gonna say to that is I think you make such a cool point that like at a lot of schools math is like put in science or put in whatever, but here, because it's its own dedicated faculty, you find faculty and students who are like 100%, 110% into math, which I think is really cool, because if you love it, like you said, you're surrounded by like 7,000 other students across the faculty of math, just in that same spot.
Exactly.
You're not split up, you know. So no, I think that's awesome advice.
Kristen, I think you bring up a really great point. We're the only school in all of North America to have a dedicated faculty of math. Nobody else does. So that's quite unique to Waterloo. Awesome. So I guess that wraps up our co-op sort of episodes. We've talked to every co-op student from every faculty, and we've ended it with math, and I think we've ended it on a good note for sure. Make sure to go to our webpage and then submit any questions that you may have and you want to be featured on our future podcasts, and then you get a chance to win a Waterloo Warrior hoodie. But for now, we'll see you soon.
Bye.